All right, part 2. So anonymity is just one of the things that gives you power and makes you feel invincible. What are the other things you guys have experienced that make most people feel invincible and why?
I don't think I've
No,
ever...
it just sounds like you're talking about, like...
Superheroes?
No, I was just going to say, the first answer would be, like, as far as things that make people feel invincible, I'm just like, I think there are certain drugs people would...
Good
like,
one.
I would think that I've never had cocaine, but there's certain types of, like, energizing drugs where I feel like that's part of the appeal of it is... They're not relaxed things. They're like make you feel like Superman type of things.
Yeah.
That's good. That's good. It wasn't on my list, and we should address it as we move into a more real world. How about you, Isaac?
I don't think I really feel invincible ever. It's just I guess there are times when I feel like really good. I feel like really strong. When I go out running, there are certain points where I hit like a runner's high where I'm all like, oh yeah, I'm in the zone, I'm doing good. But aside from that, I don't really know. Like I say, I don't really ever feel invincible.
So this is how I think, a female and a male mind differs. Both of you are on the fringes of, a physical stimulant that gives you a high. And this is what I wrote on my list. Fame, power, money. It's like, I love that blank look on both your faces.
Yeah, I mean,
feel like there's a lot of those things that would potentially make me feel the opposite of invincible.
Yeah, I was gonna say the same. I mean, like I see how they could make one feel invincible if they're a certain personality type, but for me, oh boy, no, that would make me feel even more like worried.
Let's go one by one, right? So, what do you want to start with? Power?
Sure.
Power all I think of is responsibility. And at that point, I don't know if this would be related to invincibility or not, but the feeling of more ability to either help or harm than is like comfortable. And so then being anxious that, if you don't do something the right way, you will be causing harm where otherwise wouldn't be if you weren't in charge of it.
Yeah.
But that's only if you're caught. Right? That's what I mean.
Well, I'm
People
just
in
describing
power.
my personal mindset of if I am in positions of relative authority,
That's interesting.
what happens to my sense of myself, I guess.
Yeah, and I think adding on to that, I mean, to answer your question, if you get caught, I don't think it matters if you get caught or not. Just like the notion that you did something that resulted in somebody getting hurt would be incredibly distressing for me.
How is that different from anonymity? People say all sorts of things when they're anonymous as well. Your actions when you have power versus when you're anonymous.
Well, I don't really think for me there is much of a... I mean, like, I would conduct myself the same way that I would anonymously as I would, like, publicly. So I guess for me there isn't really as much of a difference.
But power intimidates you.
Yeah, and I think doing something like I could know, for example, that, I could leave a banana peel that fell out of my car while I was in a parking lot, and then I could get a thought in my head that some old lady's going to come along and slip on that banana peel and die. Like, at no point am I thinking that I'm worried that somebody's going to find out it was me and then sue me.
Right.
I'm just focused on the fact that this bad thing would happen to this person, and it would be because of what I did.
Yeah.
So the butterfly effect of any action that you take thoughtlessly. Okay. How about fame? People love being famous. Everyone craves being known.
Do they? Do they crave the fame, or do they? I mean, I guess for different people it feels... I mean, I guess for different people it's different, but I find the idea of being famous really intimidating in that... Well, I guess also it depends on, like, what type of fame we're talking here, whether we're talking like like you're a president of the United States kind of thing, or
Right.
whether you're just like you're an actor or a celebrity.
I feel like fame in some ways would be not so different from power, because it's either way, it's you have the ability to impact people.
Yeah.
So I'll elaborate on fame. So fame / popularity or prominence, right? Most of us, we don't want to be just famous at this point in our life because we all think it's just TikTok and, very, 5 minutes of fame sort of a concept nowadays.
I think I'd be good at being famous
I
and
think
not
so.
having it mess up my head. I don't know if I'd be very successful at it, in the sense I would not really... I can't say this for certain, so this is like the world's biggest grain of salt.
Yeah.
But if I had become rather famous because of something, I don't think that I would necessarily worry about if I was going to stay that popular. I feel like I would be more or less content to be like, oh, okay, well, this is uncomfortable, but also kind of cool.
I see
And
that.
it might be that soon after this, that wave is over and somebody looks back and is, oh, this person, but otherwise I'm really not famous or anything. And I think I would be probably just fine with that. I don't think it would bother me that much in a way being famous. And also I think the idea of being famous and then having that subside really quickly wouldn't bother me to the point where the fame would bother me on that level. Because I feel like that's part of the issue
Right.
with a lot of the anxiety people experience around that, is that how do you keep that kind of a train rolling, especially when you don't really have any control over it. If you work at a job and you want to be productive in that job and there's a way of measuring your productivity, you kind of know what you have to do to keep yourself being as productive in that sense. But if your job involves a lot of being famous, you really don't know if what you're doing is going to continue to work in that way,
Right.
or if some tide is going to shift and you're working just as hard as you ever did and the fame just evaporates without there ever being an obvious explanation why.
Right. So in that sense, it works same as the drugs then, right? That's why I was like, this is interesting because to me, mentally, these things give you the same triggers. But you guys just took the shortest route.
That'd be my shortest route, but I
Yeah.
I have no interest in that, but I think it would be more effective.
Yeah, instant gratification. So fame, fair point. And we are too grown up to take fame seriously. That's why I want to replace it with the word prominence. Right? Prominence usually is for some contribution or work that you've done. So in that sense, it's the action which holds higher value than your personal identity. You don't think so?
No, I do. I just think that also includes like something that you did that was not good.
Prominence.
And you make some dumb mistake and then that becomes rather famous and then you're defined by this thing because of that, but it's not
That's
necessarily
infamy.
a good thing.
That's infamy. We're talking about positive things.
No, but you just use the word prominence, and to me that's almost like if you were trying to tactfully say that somebody was famous but not in a good way, you could use the word prominence because it's technically true. But it's like people don't like this person. It's like, well, they're a very prominent figure.
Yeah. Yeah, I can see what you mean there.
All right, Americanize me. Do explain. I haven't heard it in that context.
I'm not
need
sure
to
I
hear
have
more about
either.
it.
I think it's just the kind of word that I don't really hear used. And so I think of it as something that would be...
Like rose to prominences for positive or negative?
I feel
Yes.
like it's a very neutral way of describing somebody who is, famous or infamous. Is like not saying
that's if you're using that's the thing. I think I agree with just what Isaac said. I find it to be neutral in
I
terms
see.
of its connotations. And to me, if you're using a neutral word to describe somebody being well known, that probably means that it's because of something bad.
I see.
yeah.
You're just being politically correct.
Yeah, like you'd be
Yeah.
like, well, he rose to It also could be, I could see that being used like, if there was a figure like, Elon Musk or in his day Henry Ford or someone like that you ask different people and they will have very different opinions about that person, and you want to stay neutral in terms of what your opinion is, you might say, well, before this person rose to prominence, and it's kind of like, it's true. Right. They rose to prominence. That's a fact that does not necessarily reveal how you feel about that person, whereas other words might be less neutral.
Mm-hmm. I see. So every time I thought I was using the word, I was giving people credit for their social or intellectual contributions. But
you're not doing that.
But I'm not expressing my approval of it either. Right.
That's how I would see it, anyways. I don't know. I don't know if everybody else.
That is interesting.
Yeah. And that's kind of how I would see it too. It's something that I have kind of become more aware of, like in the last, I don't know, maybe the last 10 years or so. And it just seems like a lot more of a polite way of referring to somebody, I guess.
What's wrong with polite, you boys?
Nothing.
Well, there's polite, and then it's kind of like, if you call somebody to be like a job reference and they're like, oh, well, we can't comment on that. You'd be like, well, that's bad. Like, technically that's neutral. Right. And they could say it in a polite way, but the very fact that they're not saying something nice, you assume it to mean that it might be negative.
Yeah. What you don't say is a lot more powerful than what you do say.
Touche to that. Touche. Mm-hmm. So this is what I feel about fame. The issue with fame is that it's very well documented out there publicly, and it isn't about being right or wrong today, but how long can you hold that relevance? And you never know when someone's going to dig it up and then be like, wait a second, what you said as a 15-year-old 30 years ago doesn't hold true anymore. Therefore, you must go about apologizing for it or explaining yourself, And can you really go back and get into that mindset of what you were thinking in that, I don't know, maybe you were on drugs? Based on what you guys are telling me, that happens very often. It's the go-to way.
If you entered into this podcast right at this moment, it would sound like you're grilling somebody, like we're grilling Isaac about his career.
What?
Yeah, that just took a turn.
Is there history to it? We can edit it out.
No, there's no history to it.
I'm pretty sure if Isaac were to become famous, he would not be the sort of thing where suddenly everybody would be scandalized by like something that he did,
I feel like it would
doubt that would be the case.
It would be more along the lines of like, oh,
that makes sense.
That guy. That guy was so boring.
What?
Well, I'm glad he's doing well for himself, I guess. I don't know.
So, yeah, I mean, if rest of your existence, as we discussed, has been anonymous so far, so, you have a clean slate now when you become famous. So that's sorted. Mm-hmm. But, yeah.
It's just one of those life things that it's kind of like, you could ask me what it would feel like to have a lion lick the sole of my shoe.
My goodness.
And I could imagine that. But whatever that actually feels like is probably different than what it would feel like if it happened.
Lion licking the sole of your shoe. I need to know, what have you been experiencing so far? What was in your coffee?
That's the lack of what I've experienced. Like the extent to which I cannot accurately answer the question as to what that would feel like. I also cannot accurately speak to what fame would do to me. I'm sure that, like, if I were to become famous, whatever experience that would feel like on a totally subjective level would probably be different than what I would imagine it to be sitting here right now. I don't know if it'd be better or worse, but I think it would be different.
It would be, because it's not an edited experience, right? You experience a lot more around it. And depending on your mental state and what you're receptive to, you latch on to different things, not necessarily just the fame of it or the popularity of it. But none of you ever wanted to be popular when in, say, high school or college, or wanted to be in that popular group?
No.
Or were you the popular group?
Oh, I was not the popular group. I guess for me, like, I wish I had been, like, when I was younger, I was like, I wish I was popular. I wish, people liked me. I mean, like, people liked me, but
Right.
I mean, like, I wanted to be one of the popular kids. And then when I got a little older, I was just like, but why? There's no need for that. I mean, like, I have a core group of friends I hang out with. That's kind of all I need, really. Everything else is just kind of window dressing. But that's something I had to come to as I got older.
How long did it take you to get there?
Ooh, late teens, early 20s, honestly.
That's good. That's rather fast.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, like, I just, hanging around with my friend group, and it's just like, we're all, this is really all I need, because, like, the idea of being, you think of, like, the popular kid, or, you think there's, like, a lot of connotations with that. It's just like, I just want to be low profile. I just want to keep to myself. I just want to hang out with, like, my core group of friends and be left alone, for lack of a better way of putting it.
How about you, Pat?
I don't think I ever really enjoyed hanging out with, like, more than, like, 2 people at a time.
So this is ideal for you.
Yeah, very much so. Very much so. And, school as an environment, I would be very, very quiet and shut down in, because it's very draining for my sense of energy. And being alone or being with just a couple of people that I was friends with made me feel better and more energized. So, like, the concept of having a lot of people wanting to be around you was, like, not appealing to me.
The quality of experience mattered more. Even at that age, you knew that. You had that clarity.
Yeah. I just too much of an extreme introvert, really. I was just very, very aware of what it felt like being around a lot of people versus being in a quieter environment, and I absolutely knew what my preference was.
That's interesting, right? Because when we became friends, you were the extrovert.
Well,
on paper, I'm the extrovert, but actually in our friendship, you've been the extrovert all through.
Yeah, and also that's because you came in and it was the 2 of us chatting, and I was in a one-on-one environment. So if I am in that sort of an environment, I can be extremely talkative and social with a person and not feel like I want to go away and be alone. If I have multiple people at a time,
talkative people aren't extroverts. I'm a talkative person, but I'm not an extrovert. I'm an extremely private person. You're very quiet. You choose your words. It's not that you say a lot, but you are the kind of person who's comfortable with the discomfort of having someone who's, not out of their shell. You can draw people out. To me, that's an extrovert trait.
Huh. See, I always think, if anything, I'm just sort of...
And you're so comfortable being you that you're very open with who you are. And, if I even give you a cue about what's going on, you know how to immediately follow it up and, to take that conversation forward. To me, that's the extrovert trait.
Interesting.
All talkative people don't make sense. Anxious people are talkative people.
Yeah. I also, though, I listen more than I talk, because a lot of things if I'm in a situation where there's a back and forth conversation with a lot of people, I don't often get the desire to jump into the conversation. And if I do, it's like a very specific thought where there's maybe this one thing, and if there's a window, I'll say it. Right. Otherwise, it stays, and it doesn't drive me crazy that it hasn't gotten out. I'm just kind of like, oh, well, I didn't say that thing. Right. It's not something that bothers me. And I'm a lot more comfortable if I can listen to someone and draw based on what they're talking about. Like, that's a more comfortable kind of conversation where somebody, like, asks me a question, and then I'm just like, and so like this, and like, and that's where I get a little more rambly. Yeah, that's true. I do agree. If I have to really catch up with people, I don't try to do it in a bigger group than 4.
I think that's the optimal number. Beyond that, nobody gets a chance. Right, so this was great. All of us agree that fame really isn't.
Well, yeah, but how about you? Did you desire like notoriety of any kind?
Notoriety. No, and I always had attention. I always was popular, but I never did anything to warrant it, or I never went out of my way to put my name in the hat and get it. Mm-hmm. And I don't miss it at all, because there were so many people who wanted it, and the thing that upsets them is, why not me and her? She's not even trying. She didn't even want it. Mm-hmm. Why would you give that to her, right? And the thing that I realized at a very early age in high school itself was you cannot make popularity as your goal. You are popular because of something, and that's why the word prominence holds so much value to me. I'm so happy you find it amusing. This is the most reaction I've gotten out of him.
Oh, it's
you have to contribute something, or it has to be of value to the people so that they talk about it. Like, what is fame exactly?
I don't know. I think it's just like most of the things that someone does as a teenager that gives them prominence are like not good. Do you know? Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, it makes sense to me.
Because you're stuck with the American definition of prominence.
Yeah.
I've watched too many 1980s John Hughes movies.
But being popular, right? Being desirable,
Mm-hmm.
and that's a difficult word as well. Now that I've said it.
Desirable, I get that. That's not. I wouldn't like instantly sexualize that word.
Okay, thank you. But in terms of your teachers, your juniors, your seniors, whoever, right? People thinking of you positively. Let's go with that.
Yeah.
They will like you if you do something that holds value to them. Popularity is a byproduct. Mm-hmm. And a lot of it has to do with timing and mentorship and the right, people who want to advocate for it. Mm. All of those things need to align in order for you to become popular.
Yeah.
If you make your goal to be popular, yes, people may think you're attractive. People may think that, hey, you're good at this one particular thing, or you can make heads turn, but it's not going to last. And that's fine if that's what those girls wanted or those boys wanted. That's fine.
I feel like it's weird. I feel like a lot of times it's not what they wanted. It's like people who really, really want to be popular struggle with ever being so, and then popularity kind of finds certain people by a certain sense of likability that is very accidental.
It is. I do think that that is half the appeal when, you have this deer in the headlights kind of person, which I wasn't, because I
can't picture you as that.
Because I was so clueless, and I cared so little that it didn't even matter to me what people thought, positive or negative.
And that's a quality that is very desirable.
That's what I was getting to. As I've grown up, I've realized other people's opinion of me gets to me. I don't miss being popular. I miss the person I was in spite of being popular, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Because there was so much negativity that went around it. You didn't really have friends in your peer circle. People who wanted to be friends with you wanted something out of you. When there were times of different things going on and they think you have influence over things, you would have different friends. If things didn't go their way, they would go and complain about you, try to sabotage you. And I was consistently the same person throughout. Mm-hmm. I miss being that person that, nothing affected me. That sense of self-assurance, And that sense of detachment, that no matter what they did, if they came back to me a week from that time, I would still speak to them the same way, There was no malice.
Mm.
And there was no expectation of them. I miss being that person. Maybe the day I become that person, I'll be popular again. I don't know for what.
It's such an interesting thing to conceptualize as an adult, too, because it's just like, what is that? Or I've never really been as an adult I work in public access, so it's like this setting where, this is like the most coworkers I've ever had.
Right.
And we're an incredibly small staff.
Mm-hmm.
That you are.
But like, I can't even really imagine what the scenario would be where I could be popular or not popular within, if that makes sense. Like,
yeah, I grew up before social media, and I was popular all through school, mainly because I was a good student. And then there were some negative bits about it as well. I've never shied away from asking questions.
Mm-hmm.
Or telling people that there's no Santa Claus.
That would do it. That would do it.
Or that too. Yeah, that's a no-no.
Yeah. So in that sense, yes, there was some notoriety tied to it as well, but a lot of it came from envy. A lot of it, and these are such grown-up emotions. To be able to deal with it and detach from it as a teenager, I'm in awe of that girl I was, and I don't know how you would grow up to grow out of it, right? If you were grown up enough to know that truth then, it kind of feels like I've regressed to let other people's opinion of you get to you now.
I do think that when people are younger, they are more extreme versions of whatever is in their nature. Like, you see that between like the introverted people as kids it's almost impossible to get them to answer a question if there's like another person in the room. And extroverted kids as kids, it's like literally bouncing off the walls. And each of those people, if you come to them 20 years later, the extrovert's still going to be an extroverted person, and the introvert's still going to be an introverted person. But those qualities will be balanced out by whatever the opposite is. Will have moderated it out a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but in that sense, that headspace, right? I'm okay with sharing that, I definitely want to let people know, confront them and let them know this is not okay. You shouldn't be treating people like this. Even if it doesn't bother me, it's not okay for them to behave like that and do it with other people, right? People need to be called out.
Mm-hmm.
But the fact that I let it get to me, I would love for that to revert back to what I was as a teenager. I think that's such a good virtue to have.
Yeah, maybe you have it more than you think you do.
Maybe. That's why I even started the podcast.
Yeah.
So that was on fame, and I have zero thoughts on drugs, so we'll get to that in the end.
That's for the Isaac on Shrooms podcast?
That's for the Isaac on Shrooms segment.
Isaac on Shrooms.
Mm-hmm.
Money. Now, I have interesting thoughts on money, but I would love to hear what you both have to say about it.
I see money as a means to an end kind of thing. Like, I see it like I want to do such and such with my life, and I need X amount of money to do it. I mean, I kind of think of it like that. It's always good to have like a cushion, I guess, like a financial cushion, but, in case of like emergencies. Mm-hmm. But I think of it like, like I need to redo the outside of my house, or I need a new furnace or something like that. You think about like, well, how can I? Well, you need money for those specific things. Right. If you took all of those things out of it, and it doesn't have to be necessarily just those things. It could be anything. Like, I want to go on this vacation, or I want to get really good at doing this particular hobby that's very expensive. But if you take all of that out of it, it's kind of meaningless, in my opinion.
It's interesting. You said a very profound thing, but everything that you listed started with wants. None of them were needs.
Well, yeah, I mean, like, there's obviously the needs. I guess in my mind it kind of went without saying. Like, we have bills we have to pay, but maybe it is worth saying it. Like, yes, a lot of that is really important. Like, we have bills we need to pay. We need to eat. We need a place to live, and all of this stuff costs money. But again, I mean, like, if we're taking all of that out of the equation, money itself is it's meaningless. So it's the things that you can get with it that is really important.
Excellent thought. I'm going to let Pat go.
Yeah, he sounds like some kind of dad at the dinner table talking about stuff like.
I have that effect on people. Make sure you put your money under the mattress.
Yeah, that was like more like a pro wrestler voice, though.
Yeah, maybe it was. My dad has a really deep voice.
Oh, okay, yeah. So. Your dad voice is just your normal speaking voice.
Yeah.
Unless you also want to be a wrestler.
A wrestling dad.
Yes.
I mean, that sounds. I don't know. What are your thoughts on money?
I think that's such a broad question that I'm not really sure I have any thoughts, unless it's more specified. In
terms of access to, buying off your consequences. Oh my God, how are you so amused right now?
Well, I mean, now it makes it sound like I'm doing horrible things and like paying people off to say that like you didn't see nothing. Like,
yeah, stuff like that, right? Stuff like that.
I don't know. I'm a very privileged person. So as far as that goes, that's why money is not something that I instantly have to say more about from a very personal and emotional level, because I had parents who were, not exactly the 1% or anything, but thoroughly middle class to the point where like they paid for my undergraduate degree. I didn't go to an expensive school or anything, but I didn't come out with any college debt. And they were able to help me as far as like inheriting one of their cars and giving me a discount. So there's a lot of ways in which, for me, starting out as an adult, I was already in an advantaged place of
cushioned.
Like not being. Yeah, exactly.
I wouldn't say advantaged. Cushioned.
Yeah, and and I've never really. I'm kind of also, luckily, don't have particularly like expensive hobbies or tastes. Like I would like to go for long walks and go to the movies and read books and generally do things that don't cost a whole lot of money.
Yeah.
Which is a nice thing to have, because sometimes there's a certain randomness. Like, I mean, even like I've never particularly had a desire to go to a lot of concerts. And that's an activity that sometimes people go to a lot of concerts, and that's something that just gets more and more and more expensive.
Oh yeah, it is.
and there's yeah. So, and as far as ability to, so I guess that's another area where I am definitely cushioned, is that like if my car gets totaled or something, or something happens that requires a sudden, like somewhat shockingly high monetary value, I am not in a position where that is going to come with like completely life-changing consequences.
So no dire consequences.
Yeah. I mean, it would make me need to make some sort of adjustment to my life to figure it out, but I have the calm of knowing that like either way I'm going to be fine.
That's interesting.
I mean, and also for me, I think for me, I don't necessarily desire to own a house one day, nor do I think that I'm likely to be raising kids. So I'm kind of in this situation where, like, if I'm never having a ton of money saved up, that doesn't bother me mentally.
Okay.
I guess for me, kind of adding on to that is, it's having money is one thing, but it really does come back around to like, well, what are we doing with it? I grew up in a situation where we were pretty decently, like we had a good amount of money, but there were also lots of times where we didn't have as much money. So, I think it's really important to know like what you want, what you need, and then kind of plan off of that. I mean, if people talk about, people ask, like, well, what would you do if you won the lottery? It's just like,
Right.
I'd fix up my house, I'd pay off my student debt, I would help my loved ones, I would, do all of these very, very specific things. I don't see that happening in my future anytime soon, so all we can do is kind of say,
don't
okay,
jinx
well,
it. It's a lottery. Anyone can win it.
yeah.
For all I know, Pat is the one with $1 billion lottery. That's why he's in such a zen state of mind.
No, I was actually just thinking about how enraging the topic of money is.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it's a horrific and amoral system in which this discrepancies between, like, okay, talk about like a minimum wage income. It's like what there ought to be from any remotely moral standpoint is a maximum wage gap. You know, it's just like, yeah, sure, some people have more responsibilities and do more work than other people, but like, is that by a value that's exponential to the billions? Like, that makes no logical sense. And it's one of those things that not like, it's interesting because I feel like critiquing capitalism is almost like, it's like you could say a lot of things about it that are true, and yet it's like what we're born into.
Right.
And it's this double thing where it's just like you're born accepting a lot of things that are kind of ridiculous when you think about it, and at the same time are so built into the infrastructure of so many ways in which your world is set up that it's almost like trying to fight lung cancer by advocating against lungs, because if we didn't have lungs, we wouldn't get lung cancer.
Yeah.
And it's just like, that's a true statement, but like, how on earth do you even start to think about, like, so anyway,
it's a simple solution, but that's what I tell people. Simple is the hardest thing to do. People confuse simple for easy.
Yeah.
I feel that when you have money, I completely agree. It's about moderating your wants and identifying the needs that truly bring you joy. Right? For Isaac, it was helping out his loved ones. For you, it was just reading books, taking a walk. But here's a thought, right? Say one of us in this room has $1 billion. Would you not want to take that walk on a private island?
No.
Yeah, not really. No.
I mean, honestly, yeah, I'm happy where I am, like, geographically. I would much rather just stay here because this is the place that makes me happy.
I mean, there are islands in the cold places as well. You could buy an island.
I don't find the idea of islands appealing.
Want that, though.
All right, maybe I chose the wrong thing. What about a mountain, or like?
No,
I can't. That's the thing. I can't think of anything that is in and of itself that expensive that I would like indulge in.
Yeah, I mean, like, I think what I would really want, and I would just, want my house to be fixed up. I would just, I think that's
I would
really
fix Isaac's house. That's what
fix
I would
Isaac's
do.
house.
Yes, that's what that would be great. Thank you, Pat. Yeah, I mean, like, I can't really think of anything else that I would want. Honestly, I mean,
or need.
Yeah.
Like, I know one thing for sure. If I had that kind of money, I would get private access to a spa and spend at least 4 hours a week there. Yeah, that's my thing.
That'd be pretty cool.
I don't want to reverse aging. I don't want to Botox the shit out of my face. I don't want to drink charcoal charged water, any of that. But it would be nice to get a massage.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's a luxury I would invest in any day.
Yeah.
And that's not a want. That's not a need. Mm-hmm. It's 100% a want. Can I survive without it? Of course I can. But if I can indulge, that's what I'm choosing.
Yeah. I mean, I think one thing I would want to do if I had that kind of money is I'd like to travel more. I would like to see my family lives kind of all over the place. Some of them live in the southwest part of the country, like California. Some people are in Texas. Some people are in Arizona. My sister lives in Europe. So, I mean, like, kind of like a very wide loop. So I would like to be able to go and visit people more often. And it would be cool to go see more places, too. More places that I've never been. And that's something that my sister and I always talk about, too, is like, well, when I'm over there, where else, what other places are there that we haven't been that would be of interest to go see? So,
but are they all public places and public experiences, or do you want to have that $500 tasting menu, private experiences?
No, I don't need that. I would say let's just do a public experience. That's fine.
So very reasonable expectations of life.
Yeah, exactly.
You guys like the company as introverted as you are.
Yeah. I mean, like, it would just hang off to the side, do our own thing.
Okay, that sounded a bit sad, but
maybe I'm a bit sad. I don't know.
The way you said it,
but that's what I want.
because you can buy that with money, right? That's what the private experience is. Only people you enjoy or want in your life.
Yeah,
those would be there. I mean, it doesn't have to be someone building out a restaurant for you. But you could most certainly book the entire place for the night.
I mean, I guess it would depend on the situation, but I just going there and doing, like, going, like, visiting those places, doing certain things, I think that would be, even though I am introverted, I think that would be enough for me.
Yeah, I mean, it's like if you're traveling to another country, for me, a lot of that is the experience of, being in a new place.
Exactly.
And you were part of that experience is being around the people who call that place home and experiencing what that's like. Because if there's nobody there but you, then it's like, well, why did you go anywhere?
That's a good thought. That's a very good thought.
Yeah. I mean, it's nice to have, like, a backdoor to retreat out of if it becomes, like, too stimulating. Like, okay, there's too much going on all at once. I need to take a moment to just take a breath. But, yeah, I mean, like, it's just like Pat said, I mean, like, it's all part of experiencing a new place, different people. Yeah, just the experience.
And the last thing, if... and you guys have a go at it, because I have no experience, nor did I think of it as something that takes away the power of consequences.
Is the drugs again?
It is the drugs.
Well, I guess...
Well, you have to tune in next time for Isaac on Shrooms.
Yeah,
I mean, come on, give us a teaser. Give us a teaser.
I mean, so... Full disclosure, I don't do drugs. I mean, I just...
Yes, I think it's a moral obligation to put that out there that this is just a joke.
Yeah, I mean, like, the joke, I guess, is I am really, really anxious. And it's, in a lot of ways, it's really funny. Because I listen to myself talk, and I'm just all like, oh my gosh. So the joke is, yeah, if Isaac was on drugs, what would he sound like?
Pretty chilled out.
He would sound
like a wrestling dad,
or hilarious, depending on what drug it was. I don't know. I think I find the prospect of being on drugs kind of scary, honestly.
Me too.
Because, like, your sense of judgment certainly can be very impaired, and you can do something that you'll really regret. I mean, like, there's all kinds of bad things that could happen
unless you never come off the drug.
Unless you're comfortable with the drug.
I think my understanding, and correct me if anybody's heard anything differently, because I've never been on any sort of psychedelic, but, like, there are certain types of drugs that act as to the extent that they enhance, like, the mental state that you are in when you take them, you're almost guaranteed a bad experience if you feel greatly anxious going into it.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, like...
And because I'm really anxious a high portion of the time, I feel like that would not be the best fit for me.
Yeah, that doesn't sound particularly desirable.
No. I think it... And then, there are... I mean, I like reading about, like, the science of drugs and chemistry, and I find that very fascinating. I don't have any experience with it, really.
Air quotes.
I did help someone out on a documentary once when they were talking a bit about the opioid epidemic. And a couple of different times when I heard these similar stories, it sort of confirmed a suspicion that I had sort of held about one of the problems with our narrative around drugs, which is I remember listening to this woman talk about being very scared but feeling a lot of social pressure the first time that she tried heroin, and was being stunned by how like indescribably good it made her feel, and the fact that when it was done, she wasn't, a wreck of a human being whose teeth were falling out and had lost everything the way that the cautionary tales tell you. So talk about a feeling of invincible. She felt like, oh, everything everybody told me that was bad is wrong because this is just good and now I'm off of it. And it's like, I feel like when I was a kid, I was used to be, until I became, was able to figure it out just through my own cultural osmosis and, oh, that makes sense. I was just like, people like, just make sure to say no. And I'm like, why would I say yes to that? That sounds terrifying. Like the only thing they tell you about drugs are horrible, awful, terrifying things. And I would feel like, why are people like so worried that I'm going to say yes to this if it's that bad? Nobody ever said, oh, there's also things about this that make a lot of people feel really amazing or wonderful, because would be afraid that that's the slippery slope that would make you want to try them. And then for some people, that almost made them feel like when they did try it that they had been lied to. And if that part wasn't accurate, then maybe they could also disbelieve all the other bad things they heard, because maybe that's not going to be true for them. And they're not really given the full narrative of what it actually means, like the reasons why someone might choose to take whatever drugs they are. It's also such a villainized, like, moral thing, too. Yeah. So it's like drug users are bad people. Yeah. And it's very much equated with, like, if you community. Are... Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So
it's like an archetype in crime movies. Like, there's the drug boss is the big bad villain that the good guys are trying to take down.
Yeah, and it's like you're never told why somebody might turn to it in the first place.
Yeah.
And given that preparation, so that by the time you're in the situation, it's new for you and you've never really been...
I do agree with that, and I think that warrants a discussion of its own. That it's more about education at this point, right? Giving a holistic view of the entire arc of how you could be introduced, what situations push you into it, and what will keep you in that loop. Because a lot of it comes through prescriptions, unfortunately.
Yeah.
All these people that we villainize, a majority of them didn't sign up for it on their own. They weren't doing it for recreation.
Yeah, and you can't really, it's, how are you going to readily, you're not going to share with anybody that you're struggling with something if the stigma of struggling with it is that severe.
Mm-hmm. But in the context of the discussion that we were having...
Yeah, sorry, that was a very side tangent.
No. That was good. What I'm realizing is, and the reason why I'm using these terms is because I don't want to treat it as a stigma. And also, obviously, the way I use words, as we're realizing, are very... based on the dictionary definition rather than the social connotations, like prominence. But yeah, drugs have risen to prominence now, right? The thing with drugs is I think it's democratizing the access to that feeling of no consequences. And the other difference between the other things versus using drugs as a tool is that it is a very personal, a very micro experience.
Yeah.
For anything and everything else, a lot of external factors have to align, and it has to do with social acceptance or your relative position in the society. Like, how much money is enough money? Somebody else is deciding it for you. Are you famous? You can't be famous on your own. 1 million people have to like you. 1 million people have to share that video or talk about you in order for you to be considered popular / famous, right? power, somebody else needs to look up to you and elect you. You have to go and influence other people in order to have access to it. So it's a very different experience versus with drugs. It's instant gratification. So I was very curious. I had written out my list of what I think is the highest level of, invincibility to the lowest. And I'm quite surprised. So my list was, the lowest is fame, because at that point, everyone knows you, but you don't know what to do with it. It doesn't mean anything if you don't have money or power. But what fame does is it's the gateway into either earning more money, because people are going to hire you for whatever they want you to do, or you're going to be in the circles where you can bypass money and be famous. But power and influence is how you can get there. For example, a president on paper doesn't earn as much, but he or she has the most power or influence over the world, right? Money is basically going to help you purchase that influence, right? People are paying all the lobbyists and everything to get their agenda pushed around. It's not the richest people, it's the people with more influence. And then on top of that was anonymity for me. If you really have that level of control over things, there's just too many people who want you out of that place. The first thing these people will buy is anonymity. If you can't, then you buy security, right? That's what you do. But
that sounds like a slogan for like a security, security thing.
Almost as good as anonymity. But I think at this point, more than anonymity, it's drugs. And there's a reason why they call it the drug pandemic, because of what it has to offer people. Yeah. Everyone craves it. Some people think fame is the way to get it. Some people think money is the way to get it. Drugs bypasses all of it, and it's such a personal experience that stays with you.
I also realized, too, if we're talking about invincibility, I would put drugs at the top as far as people's feeling of invincibility, but interestingly, it would probably be at the bottom when it comes to actual invincibility.
Oh, yeah.
Because it's it weakens your body over time,
right?
And it also puts people in situations of, both car crashes or, getting into bad situations they shouldn't have been in which they are extremely vulnerable. So it's almost like you feel invincible, and in reality you're putting yourself in extreme risk.
Yeah, you're more vulnerable than ever.
I mean, for me, right, but I don't know. Maybe now that I look back and we had all these discussions about missing out the tone and being clueless. Maybe.
And I don't know if that was just a side thought that I thought of in my head. I'm like, oh, that's interesting. I still put drugs on the list, top of the list, because I feel like what we're talking about is that.
Yes.
That feeling and that sense of invincibility.
Yeah, I do think that's the reason why people do it. Otherwise, none of these things would have any value whatsoever. To have some sense of control or power or influence over their situation, or, whatever they have an opinion of. But I believe that whatever you are is only, you become more of you if that consequence is taken away from you. So if you are a good person, if you're a kind person, if you're someone who really cares, and somebody tells you have nothing to lose, chances are you're going to be more of good, kind, and caring than being a douche to the person next to you. Yeah. I truly believe in that, and that's been my experience, at least in a very one level, that the basic propensity of a person is to desire a true, genuine human connection. That remains a different conversation, that as a collective, does that propensity change? or we are easily influenced and start believing that we are the only ones who are doing good and it's not propagating enough. And therefore, on social media, we see more negativity. But to conclude, I think it also has to do with what we register and how we feel things to be. And nobody said it better than, Mark Antony in Shakespeare's Julius Caesar play. The evil that men do lives after them. The good is oft interred with their bones. So I think a lot of it has to do with what we choose to latch on to as well.
Mm-hmm.
Any closing thoughts from you guys?
I think that pretty much covers it. That's a really deep quote and one that really stays true.
I think the good lives on in ways that are just more subtle.
Yeah.
Because good, by its very nature, at that point, it's different than fame. It's just, the way that you behaved in your life that influenced other people who were around you, and that's changed their behavior, even if nobody ever wrote about it.
Their behavior, their perspective on things, yeah.
That's
just to put an optimistic spin on it.
Yeah, no, I agree with
quote.
it. No, I agree with you. I think that, and that's what I think I said when I was talking about popularity as well. You said it way better. That the action and the outcome outweighs the recognition for the person.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah.
So now we're agreeing on prominence.
Yes.
All right.
I feel like we should ask other people how they feel about that word, though. I'm far from the... I don't want to be the American perspective, because I often talk with other people who were raised in the U.S. and I have a completely different point of view than them on random things like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no. Maybe this is a question we open up to our listeners.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think prominence means? Is it neutral, or is it just a kind way of, being politically correct? Or do you really think it's about the action that is outliving the name of the person? Looking forward to hearing from everyone. We're going to close the podcast now. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.